So the BBC is pushing an anti-child and anti-population agenda. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Heise Says. I thought we'd have a look at this short from the BBC, this episode, where they are arguing if children are the future because of climate change. Now, I'm a believer in an eventual technological solution to any man-made issues revolving the climate. I think there's a lot of hysteria around it. It has similarities to other religiously motivated end-of-world prophecies, which all throughout history have been proven incorrect because we're here. You know, at the end of the 19th century, there's a revival movement and the spiritual movement in the States, and there were so many people claiming that the end times were coming again and again and again. You know, the Jehovah's Witnesses predicted the world would end over and over again, and it never happens. Even Al Gore predicted that by now all the ice caps in the North Pole should be gone. You know, our ability to predict the future, I really doubt. But I do have confidence that any environmental impact humans have on the planet will be able to be mitigated with technology. Just look back in the 60s to how much pollution we were creating just in our vehicles, just in our cars. How much power our technology was using compared to now. We'll be okay. It's not something we have to go crazy about. It's not something we have to destroy our economy to address. That's why Paris, Australia signing up to that is completely pointless. If anything, it'll have a negative impact on our economy. It'll have a negative impact on the environment. And it will hamper our ability to innovate and find potential solutions. So I thought we'd watch this and have a talk about it, because in some ways it is very depressing that people believe this garbage and are not having families and are missing out on probably one of the best things someone can do in their life, an achievement anyone can have if they're, you know, halfway decent parent.
I always thought I would have a baby. Okay, I imagined I would have 4.
I have 4. They're fun.
But to be honest, I'm scared.
Yeah, being a parent is scary when you start out. But here's the thing, you grow up as your kids grow up. You're not the same person entering into it as you come out of it. And you learn a lot of things.
Here's the thing. A child born today will be 30 by 2050. And the world is predicted to look pretty different by then.
Well, the world was predicted, 30 years ago to look very different now. Still waiting for my Back to the Future flying cars.
It's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be destroyed by
She looks like a reputable cult member, doesn't she?
extreme weather events, hurricanes, all kinds of things.
I've decided not to have kids to do my part for climate change.
Isn't he just the stereotypical Canadian cuck? I'm not having kids to do my part for climate change. I'm not having kids. What about your legacy? What about your legacy? What about giving back to future generations? Pathetic.
Climate change is happening now, and it was a strong factor in why I chose not to have children.
I already have
Yeah, sure.
2 kids, but I'm concerned.
On today's episode, we're looking at the state of our planet and asking if children really are the future.
Okay, this will be interesting. Cut through the noise, sure.
The effects of climate change over the next few decades are expected to be catastrophic.
They were saying this in the 80s. They were saying this in the 90s. Okay? People can suffer from cognitive bias. They can blame natural weather patterns on climate change. Climate change. You know? Oh, no. We had a repeatable La Nina or El Nino event. Oh, it's climate change. It's cognitive bias. People are just seeing what they want to see.
Folks chose to stay here on the Keys and ignored the mandatory evacuation order.
Is there anything that was saved, do you know?
Nothing. Absolutely.
This is like flat earthers in many ways. It's just, the reporting is really weak. The reporting is weak. They're just finding disasters and using it for their own means. How's this different from the Protestant pastor that was going all over YouTube saying that the path of the moon is causing, you know, disasters?
Nothing.
Beyond facing more extreme weather, climate change is already impacting the choices that we make in our daily lives.
Not really. Authoritarian governments are restricting our freedoms and impacting the choices we can make in our daily lives. It's why I can't get a plastic bag anymore in Queensland. Okay, I know it doesn't cost much, but it just annoys me.
Whether we use plastic, drive cars, or recycle.
Recycling. Today, I'm going to go completely off topic. I pulled apart a trampoline today, and I wanted to sell the metal as scrap, the scrap steel. And we went to 3 places, and a few of them we're finding out are just dodgy middlemen that'll take your car for $50 and then on-sell it. We finally found somewhere, and they were just closing, and we could get about 17 cents a kilo for steel. Okay, because I don't want to put it in the recycling bin if I can make money for it. It's not too far from where I live, and I'll sell it for scrap metal. Let me know in the comments, guys, how much you get for scrap around the world, and if you recycle for things like that. So, yeah. I'm all for recycling as long as I get paid.
So it's no surprise that it could impact perhaps the biggest decision.
It could impact perhaps your biggest decision. Wow. It shouldn't.
Whether or not we have a kid. We're going to meet Josephine, who is a co-founder of the group Conceivable Future. And
here we go. This will be interesting.
They get people together and talk about the anxieties surrounding having children in an era defined by climate change.
Good Lord, this is horrific.
The question that we ask is, how is climate change shaping your reproductive life? The worst case scenario is pretty bad, right? And it's pretty soon.
Well, I'd be more worried about your fertility and your time frame to actually have children. The sad thing is people are putting it off long and long and long for a career that many people may not find rewarding in the end, and then they're dying alone with cats. Who's going to take care of you in your old age? Won't be your cat.
You talked sort of about how there's 2 different reasons people don't want to necessarily.
Or is this just people who haven't been able to have children and are trying to trick other people into just living their childless lives? Because this is... You have to think about it. Your genetic legacy has lasted for millennia, millions of years. And then you're the end of it. Because you're worried about the environment. You think that your impact will make any difference at all. You know, Mr. Cuck Canadian there who's not having kids. You know what? I'll just take some rubbish out of the recycling bin tomorrow, put it in the bin, and undo all of his effort right there. Just to spite him.
Have children.
But among the people who are considering not having a child for reasons of the climate crisis, it tends to fall along this spectrum where on one end there's the harm that your child would do to the earth.
The more I learn about climate change, the more my decision to have children.
You're a child. This girl's a child. Just some random Twitter person.
Children becomes an issue way bigger than just myself.
So Kiara and I have decided not to have our own children, but rather to adopt. Environmental concerns and climate change is definitely one variable impacting that decision.
And on the other extreme,
I don't know. I don't want to raise another man's children. Is that just me? Is that a normal thing for blokes to want to raise your own kids?
is the harm that the world will do to your child, right? It's like when you...
The harm? Is this because of helicopter parenting? Is that why? Is this kind of like some weird, demented, guilt-ridden extension of that? Is this just the boomers' angst pushed onto a generation? I guess it's just going to be a whole bunch of lefty nutters whose genes will die out. Maybe this is one way we can end this postmodern, the Marxist rubbish.
You bring a child into the world, you're accepting some moral responsibility for the quality of its life.
Quality of their life. Wow.
If the prospect of having a kid wasn't daunting enough, now we have to consider climate change?
No, you don't. You don't have to consider it. This has got over 680,000 views.
I decided to meet with Astrid, a climate scientist, to find out just...
Oh, she's a climate scientist? I thought she was a cult member. Oh.
How bad things might get in my future child's lifetime. So is the world gonna look like these disaster movies that Hollywood is making?
I doubt it. Because climate change, it's here and we're already feeling the impact, right? But it is something that is kind of slow moving.
There you go. It's slow moving. It's a slow-moving disaster. We're not talking about Pompeii. We're not talking about an earthquake or a volcano that'll suddenly erupt and destroy civilization. We're talking about a slow-moving disaster. If you're interested, look up the Copenhagen Consensus. Look at the actual value of devoting resources to address this issue. You know, it's... The sad thing is, people are buying into this. This actually makes me feel really sad. People are buying into this rubbish, and they're missing out on historically one of the most rewarding parts of someone's life. That's what they're doing because of insane ideology, and they're going to have absolutely no impact at all on the world. None at all.
It kind of creeps up on you.
While it seems slow-moving now, the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, shows the threat is actually speeding up. Scientists warn that global temperatures could rise by as much as 1.5 degrees Celsius.
That's less than they were predicting years ago. What's going on? What's going on? And 1.5 degrees. Life will adapt. It always does. Has before. Has in the past. Look at historical core samples.
By 2030. What effects of climate change might we see in 10 years?
Increase in the number of very hot days. Sea level rise is going to be higher. Diseases spreading.
Well, they haven't really risen in the last 100 years. If you look at all the historical photos along the coast of Australia, probably erosion from dodgy developments.
Further to areas where they didn't used to be.
More asthma due to hot days. Water shortages will lead to crops to fail. And the IPCC report predicts that we're actually on track for a 2-degree rise, which could be even more devastating.
Oh no, we'll have to go Soylent Green and eat other people. Oh, wow. Yeah. Once you start looking at the models, if you start working in... all these models are based on climate models, and they're just as good as the data that you put into them, and they can be manipulated to achieve different results. In architecture, here in Queensland, you have to get a star rating for your buildings. You can get an energy assessment done of your buildings, of every house. And you can manipulate the rating, the energy efficiency rating, just by changing 1 or 2 little parameters, just to kind of fudge it to get what you want. Then no one actually checks if that's what's happened, or they just kind of cursory check it, certifies. And boom, that's what the government is pushing on you with additional costs per house for these perceived benefits, which it's questionable. If you look at the actual cost of putting in certain features to achieve these star ratings and you compare it to what the actual outcomes are, it can take 30, 40 years for it to pay back.
For the Earth.
Every single thing on Earth is going to be changed by a changing climate. It matters because we don't know what kind of world there will be left for your kids.
This really seems like fear-mongering. I would expect this to be in like the meeting hall of a cult, or a doomsday cult, preparing for the UFO to appear. This is what it sounds like to me.
Kid or my kid to be living in. That's not to say that you shouldn't have the kid or you should.
Frankly, I'm not worried about climate change. I'm worried about the growing rise of socialism in our country here in Australia. I'm about the lack of freedom of speech. That's what's concerning for me. About a Labor government taking away economic opportunities for my children. About my boy being discriminated against because he's not a girl. About schooling favouring girls. Those are the things that will actually have impact. This will have none. Absolutely none. Unless they put a bloody carbon tax and destroy the economy. Then it will.
Kid, that's to say that, like, we're looking at a radically transformed society in a best case scenario.
We already are for leftist ideology.
Josephine and her husband are still debating whether or not they want to start a family.
Well, she's probably getting too old to have a family. How old is she?
I was doing this project, I was starting to do this project that I was able to acknowledge to myself that a part of me really did want to have a child, or this wouldn't be important to me, or I wouldn't be doing this work or having these conversations.
Guys, how old are you again?
I'm 35.
35, so yeah.
Oh, what? You're young. No, she's not young. She's not young. You want to pump out the first one by the time you're 30. And your fertility starts declining. 35, it'll start tanking. It will start tanking. And not just for women, for blokes as well, guys.
Like you said, the window, it's not closing by any means, but it's getting shorter every year.
It's getting shorter, right.
To have a biological child.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's closing. It's closing quick.
It's more just that the decision has to be made in the next decade, which is hard.
And not...
You don't want to have your first kid at 45, okay? You do not want to have your first child at 45, ever. Ever. If you're discussing, blokes, if you're young and you're discussing this with your girlfriend, you want them to have children as young as you can both agree on because it's better for their body. It's healthier for them. 45 up, you get complications. And then if you start having, you need to do treatments, that can add a cost to something that shouldn't cost you anything. And you don't want to put that danger on your partner, on your wife, on your girlfriend, the person you love.
Not making it is the same as making it, and it's like as time passes, right?
Now, of course, there's a lot of different reasons that people decide not to have children.
Health, money, career. Money, who cares? Comes and goes. You're not taking it with you. Career, you know, your career, it's only a certain window. Is it gonna care for you at the end of your life? Health, yeah, that I can appreciate that. If you've got certain medical conditions that wouldn't allow you to have children, I can appreciate why people would accept that.
And don't forget that birth control isn't available everywhere, so not everyone has the choice. But climate change was cited as a factor by a third of millennial adults.
Wow, that's stupid. Millennial adults, 20 to 45. I don't think the 45ers are millennials, aren't they boomers?
Who said they were considering either not starting a family at all or having fewer children.
I wonder if it's also got to do with the fact that just cost of living has gotten so high.
So, should we consider it a selfless act not to have children, or is it...
Oh, you're kidding me. Why did I have to watch this?
Simply defeatist? Don't we need a new generation to save our planet?
We have to care because if we want to live a long life, as long as our parents, we kind of need a planet to have that life.
What? Do these people think the world is coming to an end? Seriously? Do they think that it's coming to an end? If they really want to make an impact on climate change, on the human-generated carbon emissions and energy consumption, they need to stop people immigrating from less developed nations to first world European and Western nations. That's what they need to stop. They need to stop that immigration because that is going to take people from a much lower energy existence to a much more energy intense existence. And that's going to increase the carbon output and going to increase their effect on the environment. Okay? It's that simple. And when you transfer someone from one culture, one environment to another, there's going to be a delay in efficiency, so it's smarter to have children. Wow. But of course they won't talk about that. That's not going to be brought up in this. You just have to stop the locals having kids. This...
Hey, my name is Ariana Khan, and I'm here in San Francisco.
That's Ariana. She's a youth climate activist living in New York, but she's from Bangladesh. She's seen firsthand how the climate crisis can permanently harm a community.
Growing up in Bangladesh, I had no choice but to care about climate change. Half of our country is underwater because of the rising sea levels.
Okay, sure. I haven't heard that.
What about the idea that bringing a child into the world with an uncertain future could be dangerous for the child?
It's fine if you don't want to have kids because of the issues that are going on in the world, but you also have to keep in mind that you can't just stop there. You have to fight to make sure that there is a world that other people can come into.
She's talking about flooding in Bangladesh. Okay? Flooding. Not climate change rises, flooding. It looks like it's happened in the past in these organizations. You know, river deltas tend to flood.
We know that the world is going to look very different for future...
No, you don't. People have predicted it. You don't know.
...generations. And we want to hear from you.
Oh, well, so, guys, I think that's the end of that one. What do you think? Do you think this is a valid argument? Do you think this is just not a BBC propaganda push to get people not to have kids? Are you going to take it seriously? Are you going to have children? Frankly, I'm more than this just makes me sad, really, that people are going to buy into this rubbish and miss out. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.